Right? So, okay, I want you to have a thought now. So I'm going to ask you to think this thought, if you can. Go with me. So I want you to think the thought, I cannot raise my hand. Can you do that? So you can have that thought, I cannot raise my hand. Is that possible? Head nods are okay. I'll accept head nods. Okay. So I want you to keep having that thought, I cannot raise my hand. But now I want you to take your right hand, and while you're having that thought, I want you to just slowly see if you can put it above your head. Okay, so everybody just take your right hand. Keep having the thought though, I cannot raise my hand. I cannot raise my hand. And see how high you can get your hand. Okay. So everybody was able to raise their hand. And you all told me you were able to have that thought. So clearly your thoughts do not determine what you do. Is that a fair assumption at this point? But a lot of times when we have a thought, we feel like it is true. It's just the truth, right? If I go back to this list of thoughts before, when you think something like, why do the bad things always happen to me? You're not thinking, oh, that's just a thought I had. Like one of the other million thoughts that went across my mind. There goes that one. You're thinking, this is true. It's reality. This is the way that the world is, right? The bad things always happen to me. But as you've just seen, like the thoughts that go across your mind is just as likely to be true as not true. And sometimes it causes us a lot of trouble when we get stuck on that thought. Or even like the thought, I just want to be happy. We take that and we make it like, this has to be true. I must be happy. I have to get an A, right? But those things are just as true as I cannot raise my hand. But when we let them push us around, we can get in trouble. So I think one of the things, this is why I put up there, like we need to get a little bit of distance for our thoughts. Because if you can see what you're thinking, if you kind of notice what the thoughts that are going across your mind, you can kind of check each one out and go, that one's helpful, I'll follow it. That one's not helpful, I'm not going to follow it. And if you have that little bit of distance, then you don't get kind of caught, hooked, and kind of like dragged around into unproductive moods or unproductive decisions because you're paying attention to this thought that you're having right now. Kind of similarly, oh my gosh, if I do that, people are going to laugh at me. It's like, well, one, that could be true or not true. You don't know for sure. It's just a thought you're having. Two, if people do laugh at you, so what? There's a whole range of ways that you can interact with your thoughts, and the way of just getting kind of, it's true, I have to do something about it. That's one way, but it's a way that normally leads you into trouble. So, second point for mental health, have a little distance from your thoughts. Your mind is not always your friend. The third one, I'd call it just acceptance. But imagine a new recruit shows up, starts talking with Coach Drew. Coach Drew starts laying out what the practice schedule is going to look like, what the requirements are to be on the basketball team. And the recruit starts going, wait a minute. We're going to do 2-a-days? I didn't sign up for that. And strength training, even outside of the season? Oh, forget it. Too tiring. Memorizing plays? Come on, can't you just tell me what the play is before you want me to run it? Like, I don't want to do that. So at least a few of you are smiling, which tells me that you're paying attention, because that's ridiculous, right? Like, you can't imagine somebody showing up to be on a sports team and saying that, right? It just wouldn't work out. Like, you don't get to play basketball unless you do those things. That's the preparation you need to do to be on the team, right? But we have the same kind of situation frequently in our lives, except our training, when we're talking about life, not just basketball, like we want to be healthy people, we want to be able to endure hardships in life. Our training is literally, what do we do when we're in a difficult relationship? How do we handle being sad when we've lost someone or something? When we're under pressure to perform, how do we make space for the way that causes us to feel? We have lots of feelings like disappointment, feeling left out, being overwhelmed. Like if we said, I'm sorry, I want life, but I don't want that. That's roughly equivalent to showing up and saying, I want to play basketball, but I don't want to practice. But it sounds like a weird message, right? I mean, I listed a bunch of things that are uncomfortable, and I said, well, those are good things. You need them. We don't usually get that message because the message that people use to sell products is mostly, if you buy my product, you won't have to do this. My product will put you on the basketball team without having to go to practice, essentially. But if we buy that message, we're going to constantly be disappointed in life because life's going to come across with good things and bad things. When the bad thing comes and we're expecting to get through life with no bad things, then we're like, oh, what gives? Life is letting me down here. Or what we also do is say, what gives? What am I doing wrong? How come my life has pain in it? I must be screwing up somehow if my life has pain in it. And then you try and get rid of it as fast as possible because you want your life to be the way it's supposed to be. Like, no, I didn't sign up for this. I don't need practice. Like, come on, I don't want to feel this way. But that really causes us a lot of extra suffering because you can't get rid of it. It's part of life. It happens. So what can you do with it? Well, not quite yet, I guess. So I have $1 million question for you. Who would like to answer my $1 million question? No? All right. You would like to answer my $1 million question.
Sure, why not?
Brave person, wonderful. Brave because you spoke up before you knew what it was. The question's not hard at all. So if I promised you that I would find $1 million for you, and the only condition was that as soon as you walk out that door, you have to fall head over heels in love with the first person you see, could you do it? Could you do it?
You mean I have to pretend to love them? Or
No. You have to actually fall in love with them. You can poll the audience.
Should I go for it?
What was your thought?
I probably would, unless I was like,
Don't be anxious. If you're anxious, I'll take this 2x4 and I'll hit you over the head with it. But I'll never have to hit you over the head with it because all you have to do is not be anxious. Which probably right? I just said I was putting a polygraph on your desk and you're already like, oh. That's human nature, right? All you gotta do to avoid getting hit is not be anxious. You can't do it. Like, it doesn't usually work that way, right? So we try to control our feelings. Like when we're feeling sad when something happened, we try and go, I shouldn't be feeling sad. Sad is gone. I want it out. I don't want any part of that, right? But what we actually know is we don't control our feelings like that. We don't have that kind of control over our feelings. And what we can do is try and avoid them, right? We can try and distract ourselves. We can try and get away from it. We can try and find somebody else who makes us think about something else so we're not paying attention. But all of that stuff potentially takes us away from things that matter. You know, it makes us waste time, spend a lot of effort and energy trying to get away from those feelings. But if we can make space for those feelings, you lose someone that matters to you, you can be sad. You can be sad and make a choice. You can be sad and do something. Like your feelings can't make you do anything unless you spend all your effort and energy trying to get away from the feeling. Does that make sense? It's a little countercultural, if it doesn't make sense. So, this is a graph that they came up with of mental health related symptoms of stress. So people are stressed and then they feel these things. Right? So feeling nervous or anxious as a result of stress, 42% of college students currently. Depressed or sad because of stress, 37% of people currently. And what often happens is this vicious cycle. It kind of goes like, I'm stressed because 85% of college students are stressed. And then at some point, because I'm stressed, I feel anxiety, I feel anxious, or I feel sad because I'm overwhelmed and I don't want to be stressed. So I am stressed, I feel this way. Then we try to not feel this way because who wants to be anxious or sad, right? So we're like, no, I just need to get rid of my anxiety, or I just need to stop being sad. I'm going to go do something and prevent myself from this. Like, for me, if I went that route, it would be watch Netflix, right? I'm just going to go home, I'm just going to watch 2 or 3 shows in a row, because then I won't be thinking about anything, and I like those shows, so that's fun. So we fight to control the feeling by doing something else like watching Netflix, but then we fail, because we turn off Netflix and the feeling comes back. Or we turn off Netflix, we go to sleep, we wake up the next day, something reminds us and the feeling comes back. We never got rid of it somehow. So we fight to control it, we fail, and then we feel more stressed because we watch 3 hours of Netflix instead of doing the work that we had for class the next day, right? So now we're not only stressed, but now we're more stressed because we're behind more, and we're more stressed because we feel guilty about being behind because we didn't have to choose to watch Netflix. So we feel more stressed, which then leads to more anxiety, more sadness. And as this cycle repeats, you get the 2 things that are at the bottom of the list. That cycle happens enough times and you get constant worrying, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to deal with this? This same thing keeps happening to me. And eventually you get just irritable. This sucks. I hate this. I don't like life. I don't like you. So your alternative is, again, what I would call acceptance. So to me, this is put fairly well in the serenity prayer, which is grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, the wisdom to know the difference. We've already decided we can't change things. We don't control them like that. So if we can accept when they are in our lives, that oftentimes leads us straight into the second point, which is giving us the courage to change what we can change in our lives. So if we're sad at a loss, we can go and be with someone who will share our sadness, right? Or if we're feeling isolated and lonely, when we feel that feeling, we can reach out and make a connection with someone else. If we're feeling guilty because we haven't paid attention to something that was important to us, if we make space for that feeling, likely it's going to move us to do the thing that we're feeling guilty about and change the situation. If we don't feel it, though, we're never going to go back to the action that logically follows. So we can't change our emotions, but we can change our response to our emotions. If you think about this, I think acceptance gets a lot of people. It's like, why would I accept frustration? Why would I accept sadness? Why would I accept pain or suffering? I want to get rid of that. But if you think about diabetes, right? Any of you know someone who has diabetes? Yeah, most of you, right? What would happen to them if they didn't accept that they have diabetes?
They wouldn't take care of themselves, like they would get, continue to get food, like they're not habit.
Yeah, and then, yeah, they'd get worse. Right. So for some reason we say diabetes, yeah, you should totally accept that you have that. Why? Because when we say we accept diabetes, the very next thing is change, right? We change our life so that we're healthier. But the same thing is the way that it works with emotional experience. If we accept it, we're not giving into it. We're not giving up and saying we're never going to do anything. When we accept that we're feeling a certain way, all we're doing is acknowledging, I actually feel like that. I'm just saying reality is real. Like, I am sad. But what that does is it gives us the ground to stand on to actually take a step to somewhere else that matters to us. So when we can accept what's going on with us, we can move on. So emotions, they convey very important information for us, and they motivate us towards things that are really important. And the ability to pay attention to our emotions is a very high-level skill. So this is a little bit different, but there's a concept called emotional intelligence. And in leadership studies, when they've studied emotional intelligence, they found that emotional intelligence is twice as important as technical skill in predicting leadership performance. So leaders who know what they're feeling, leaders who can pay attention to what other people are feeling, and leaders who know how to help people manage their feelings, that quality is twice as important as whether or not they're good at the technical work that they do in predicting their success. So all of these things that we do, we need to make some space for our emotional experience. And the last point I would say is when you don't get caught up in your thoughts, when you make some space for your feelings, then you have the freedom to do what matters to you in any situation. You're not getting pulled around by your thoughts, you're not trying to get away from your feelings, now you have the freedom to do something that you actually care about. So if you think about these questions, how do you want to be remembered? What do you really care about? Who do you want to be? What kind of a difference do you want to make in the world? These questions are all questions that kind of point you towards your values. Those are the ways of being that you care about. Your values, right? Your values give you a direction every time you have a choice. You know? So values aren't goals, they're different. So like, you could have a goal of getting married, right? You get married, you accomplish that goal, it's done, it's over, it's finished, right? But a value might be being a good spouse. That's never going to be done. That can always inform you. Every choice that comes up, you can choose the option that's being a better spouse. It can always be there as kind of a compass needle and point you in a direction that matters to you. So if we make enough time and space to identify our values, then we can start living in a way that takes us to places that we actually want to go. So we can set goals that are based in values that matter. So I brought you one thing that you can actually take away from tonight. If you want to pass some of these around. And this is just a values-based goals worksheet. And you've probably heard of like SMART goals before. How many of you have heard of SMART goals? Well, if you haven't, it's on a sheet of paper for you. But SMART is an acronym. 5 is acronym for ways, things to consider when making a goal. So in addition to that SMART goals piece that's on the sheet of paper that you've got there in front of you, I'll give you just a moment to process that. In addition to what's on that sheet of paper, I wanted to tell you just a few other things that I think are important about goals. Like, goals are very motivating for us. Once we set a goal, like we're motivated to move towards it, accomplish it. But when you do that, I would encourage you to remember these couple of things. So set goals that are positive and action-oriented. What I mean by this is set a goal to do something, not to avoid something, right? So it's easy to set a goal like, I want to stop smoking, right? That's a goal of something you don't want to do. You're much more likely to accomplish a goal that's something you do want to do that's incompatible with smoking, right? So you're much more likely to achieve a goal that's like, I'm going to exercise for 45 minutes 3 times a week. It's hard to smoke and to do that physically. It's more challenging. And also, if you're spending that much effort on your physical health, working out, it's going to change, it's going to help influence your attitude to also not be smoking. So if your goal is more of a positive one, it's more likely to happen for you. Also, a lot of the time, we would call these kind of negative goals, I want to stop something, I want to not do something. We you could call them like dead person's goals, because technically if you're dead, you're not smoking, you accomplish the goal. Like, you don't actually have to do anything to achieve that goal, you have to not do something. But we're pretty bad at not doing things. If I said, hey, I just want you to not do something for a minute. Don't do anything at all, period, for a minute. You'd be able to do it? Yes, no, maybe? No, why not? Yeah, you gotta do all kinds, you gotta have to do something. Like, we're not built to not do things, we're built to do things. But we just get to choose which of those that we do. So when you're thinking of goals, make them positive and action-oriented, you're more likely to actually succeed. The second piece I'd say is, immediately when you set the goal, make part of your goal setting identifying your first step. And it should be something you can do now. You might be setting a goal that's something you won't be able to finally achieve for 5 years, probably. But if you can't start doing something in the next day, the likelihood is you won't start it. The sooner to right now that you take your first step, even if it's a very small step, you take some sort of action towards the goal, the more likely it is that you actually achieve your goal. And then, if you really want to achieve your goal, make a public commitment to your goal. Stand up in front of people that matter to you and say, I'm going to do this. Most of the time we say, hey, there's this thing I really want to do. I'm going to try to do this thing. Maybe it will happen. But if we stand up and say, this is the thing I'm going to do, here's why it matters to me, and here's the first step I'm going to take, people who do that are much more likely to actually achieve that goal for the day. So, a couple tips for setting meaningful goals for yourself on things that matter. So the last piece I would say in goal setting is eat the frog. Have you ever heard of this phrase before? You have. Right. So I've heard this in a couple different stories. Apparently it comes from a quote originally by Mark Twain. It's your job to eat a frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning. It's your job to eat 2 frogs, it's best to eat the biggest one first. So imagine you come into work one day, sitting down at your desk, setting up things like Rodgers and stuff I gotta do, and there's a frog in the middle of your desk. It has a note on it from your boss. It just says, eat this frog sometime today. Okay, it's pretty unusual. I don't know why my boss wants me to do that, but it's also kind of disgusting, so I'm not psyched about this. You kind of sit there, you start pondering it, okay. Then you decide, well, maybe I'll send a few emails. Maybe my boss will walk by and I can ask him about this. You start sending a few emails, you get caught up with something else, it's lunch before you know it, you're like, all right, I haven't seen my boss, but, oh yeah, that frog's there.